What's up, you amazing people? I hope you're having a fantastic day. You are, of course, watching and listening to the Daily Dirty 30, also known as the DDT, here on The Kevin Lee Show. And I am your host, Kevin Lee. Now, for those of you who do not know what the DDT is all about, let me take a moment to explain. You see, it's a show that airs live at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday, and it's where I get to spend 30 minutes telling you, the viewer, all about the things that bother me today. What do I get out of it? It's easy. It's therapeutic. Why should you tune in? That's even easier. It's entertaining. Sound like a fair trade? Good. Let's get to it. Hello, friends, and happy Thursday. Yes, it is Thursday. If you didn't know, we weren't off yesterday because, well, that's what we do every Wednesday now. What are you watching? You're watching the Daily Dirty 30, also known as the DDT, or I should say the DDT, also known as the Daily Dirty 30, a show that airs typically Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, and runs somewhere around a half an hour. Yes, so that is what you are watching, and that is where you are at. I am your host, Kevin Lee. How you doing? If we haven't met before, nice to meet you. This is a show that we talk about, and by we, I mean me and all my personalities. We talk about some things that I found interesting today. Yes, that's exactly what we do. Anyways, yeah. Oh, actually, you know what? I think I'm going to take this off so we can get right. Oh, there we go. There's my name. I knew that was important for some reason. We're going to get right to the topics today. And that would be, well, for starters, I don't need a break. You do. Trust me, you do. The reason why I say this is because it's kind of a thing we've talked about recently. Seems like everyone is losing their crap lately, right? This is kind of a thing. Everyone just kind of seems like they're not, their normal selves, their good selves. They're not people who are being where they're supposed to be, right? They're struggling, if you will, I guess would be the way to put it. They're, sometimes maybe mom and dad don't seem as happy as normal, or maybe your wife or your husband or your partner or your friend or your coworker, they're usually this normal person. They're just like not that normal, bubbly, positive, feel good person anymore, right? It's kind of started maybe sometime during 2020 and just kind of decreased, and they've become worse and worse and worse as 2020 has gone on. And now we find ourselves in October and everyone's miserable. Yeah. So I don't need a break. You need a break. You need a break from lots of things. Unfortunately, ta-da, it is 2020. It is October. The election is only weeks away. We have a Supreme Court nomination going through. People are acting insane. Terrible things are happening. You're not going to get a break, but you need one. So please do what you can to take care of yourself. Please do what you can to make it through this. I don't know. I hesitate to call it like the final stretch, right? Because again, it's almost like a horse analogy where horses race around a track and they go around the first bend and there's a straightaway, and they go around the second bend and the third bend, and they hit the straightaway, and they're going to come right in and they're going to finish strong. But that's not what happens, right? That's not with this, because chances are we're going to have an election, and chances are after an election, half of the country is going to be very upset, regardless if they vote left or vote right. If Biden wins, people on the right are going to be miserable. People, if Trump wins, God help us all. Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, and again, we're going to talk about the election and everything in a minute. I just want to kind of say, you know what? Let's just take a moment to take care of you, right? If talking about politics is not your thing right now, if you need a break, like even right now, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, you know what? I can't take any more talk about politics or anything going on in our country, then please, by all means, just stop listening. I'll come back tomorrow and we'll talk about more positive things for the weekend, right? I won't take offense at it. I won't be angry. If you need to just get away from everyone, including me today, by all means, do it. Just do it. Right? And so, for those of you who stuck around and want to talk about things, let's talk. Well, before we talk about other things, I have a couple questions. Now, this is basically like a half an hour podcast / show where I just kind of talk and rant and rage about things that I'm that got to me today, right? But as far as the intro and outro of my show goes, it's like in a minute and a half intro, almost a minute outro. You think I should cut it down a little bit? You think I should like chop off some of that and just remove me talking over the intro and just play a little bit of the song, maybe 20 seconds, and then do like a 20-second outro and cut off the 30-second countdown in the beginning? That would probably make more sense, right? That would probably be the thing that you all think would be best, right? Am I guessing right? If I am, please hit me up in the comments or over on Twitter. You can at me at Kevin Lee Show or and please use the hashtag. But Kevin Lee Show and put the hashtag podcast, right? And then that way I'll know what you're talking about. And if you think I should like end or not end, but shorten and drastically shorten the intro and outro and remove all the audio, I think that's what I'm going to do. But I would like to hear someone else's opinion on it because maybe you like it. Maybe you want me to leave it. I don't know. Or maybe you want me to leave the beginning the same and then just shorten the end. I don't know. Maybe maybe I should scrap the whole thing and come up with a whole new intro, outro song thing, jingle, jangle, something, something, right? Maybe. I don't know. Anyways, let's get to the topics of today. So one of those topics would be election burnout, right? We are talking about, oh, you know what? Maybe that'll help. Maybe my audio will be better now. Is my audio better? I was doing a podcast with someone else and I had to put on echo cancellation, and I think maybe this is better. Maybe this is going to sound better now. I apologize. So let's get back and talk about election burnout. Yes, it is really, truly a thing. So normally, I believe election burnout occurs every 4-year cycle. I know there's people, not everybody, but certain people who will try to participate as much as possible during something like this, during an election cycle, and they'll hit a wall. You know, they'll kind of give up and be like, you know, here's my white flag. I'm done. Don't want to hear about it anymore. Don't want to do this anymore. But I would have to argue at this point, that's probably the average person, right? That's where we're at. Like, shit's gotten bad, right? Let's just face it. Like, it's not a good time to be. Well, it's a great time to be an American. But again, I have a different outlook than most people do. Like, I enjoy politics. I enjoy the pettiness. I enjoy the games. I enjoy the politicking. And it's all terrible. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to make it seem like it's not. It is. But, you know, some of us are addicted to chaos. Some of us are okay with the world falling apart because that's just the way life goes. Like, I mean, hopefully we can hold it together enough where we don't completely fall apart and dissolve into some terrible, no good, very bad society. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, right? No one has lived through this. There's nobody alive today who has dealt with anything remotely as bad as we're going through right now. Even like way back in the day, like if we got a time machine and we go back to the beginning of our foundations, it was bad. And in some ways it was probably worse than it is now. Sure. But only in some ways, because so many people were so naive about what was going on at the time. They didn't know what was happening. And the ones that were, I mean, these are the type of people that, oh my God, you know, whoever has, you know, the flu, they're going to die. It's just the way the world was. It was a different outlook. You didn't plan on working for 40 or 50 years and then retiring and then living another 20 years and then hanging out with your grandchildren and your great grandchildren. That's not what the world was like back in the 1700s, right? You were lucky to make it to 50, 60 years old. Like that was, you did great if you made it that far. So, you know, nowadays we're kind of jaded. We have a different outlook on life. We have a different expectation of life. So, and not only that, we have social media. I'm like, oh my God, imagine just take a minute and just try to close your eyes and picture, like, what if George Washington had Twitter? Like, okay, our country would be completely different. Let's face it, right? It's not a Trump thing. It's not even an Obama thing, because Obama had Twitter, but, you know, he used it reasonably. He used it respectfully. But at the same token, like, Trump got elected because of Twitter. And it's true. Like a lot of people will argue, well, no, that's not what. No, that's what it was. It was a knee-jerk reaction by a lot of people who were tired of Obama and things that didn't come to fruition that they believed would. Right, that was part of it. But the other part was, here was a guy who was a non-politician who was going to drain the swamp and build the wall and do all these things and protect our families and make us safe. And everyone's like, okay, sounds good. I can dig that. And then he's on Twitter and he's saying all this stuff. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Like, it's terrible, but it's like, that's kind of cool that he's willing to say all that. Like, that's kind of my guy. I'm going to root for him. And everybody, like, this is going to be a quick history for those of you who either weren't old enough to vote in 2016 or didn't pay attention to election night in 2016 or are whatever, just disconnected from politics. But election night was a shock to everybody. And when I mean everybody, I mean everyone. Like every American, including Donald Trump, was surprised by the results. I mean, maybe pleasantly surprised for some people, including maybe Donald Trump, but surprised nonetheless. So election was insane. And this election is a complete crapshoot. Like everyone's like, oh my God, Biden's up by 7 points and 9 points and 10 points, and he's going to win in a landslide. It's going to be nonsense, and we're going to have a new president and blah, 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 blah. Maybe. I'm not betting on it. I mean, let's face it. Back in 2016, the polls were wrong, not because the polls were wrong, but because people lied to the pollsters, because they didn't want to be like that person who's going to vote for Trump. They didn't want to say it because they didn't know who he was. They didn't want to. They were afraid probably they're on record or something, even though they're told they're not, So a lot of people were not honest when it came to the polls in 2016. Well, do you think those people would be any more honest now because of all the crap that's going on, all the threats that are going on, all the cancel culture that is going on? No, people are going to be even more in the shadows when it comes to Trump. So when people are saying, well, I'm not voting for him or I'm voting for Biden or whatever, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Trump wins in 2020. I wouldn't at all. I was shocked in 2016, but I would not be shocked at all if he won in 2020. And again, even if he does, oh my God, like we could really get into this, right? We could get into all this craziness and nonsense of what it could look like and what it could mean. And we've kind of talked about it before, Think about the fact that, okay, say Trump wins. But say the Republicans lose the Senate. Well, all of a sudden, they're going to immediately impeach him, right? And once they impeach him, then they're going to process him through the Senate, have their day in court, if you will, and then get rid of him, right? And they won't be able to do the same thing with Pence, but Pence will have a very short period of time to be able to try to get someone else elected as a VP to get in place because they're going to come after Pence then, most likely. Now, that's the case. The Senate, who will be in charge by the Democrats, will have to approve his VP pick. So that's going to be a nightmare, the whole scenario, right? And so on and so forth. Now, let's say Trump wins and because I'm not a Republican, but the right holds on to the Senate, then nothing will get done ever again because the left, who will be running the House, undoubtedly, will never work with the Senate. And the president will never get anything done unless he can pass something through an EO or an executive order. For those of you who do not know what that means, it's possible. It can get done. It's humanly possible, but not much, nothing of consequence. So either, and then let's play the silly card. Let's say Biden wins, right? And let's say the Democrats hold on to the House. And let's say let's say the Republicans hold on to the Senate. Nothing gets done. Ever. Like nothing will ever get accomplished, at least for another 2 years. And then who knows? And maybe at that point, people are so sick of it that a bunch of people get voted out of the House and all of a sudden there's a bunch of Republicans in charge again. And then now the Republicans control the Senate and the House, but not the White House. It's just, oh my, there's so much crap. And then, of course, Biden's not going to make it very long. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Deadpool, but if Biden gets elected, I guarantee you on election, now it won't have election night, but whatever day it's announced, 3 days later, 7 days, 10 days, 2 months later, whatever it is, that if Biden wins and he is declared, if you will, the president elect, the dead pool will be started immediately of how long it's going to be until he steps down or has an accident or whatever, an episode, and then has to be removed from office. And speaking of that, well, I was going to kind of talk about that next, but okay, so let's hop right into it. So this says Senate, but let's just talk about the Congress first, and then we'll talk about the Senate. So what does it look like when the Senate loses its mind? Well, it looks like a lot like what's going on today. But so I don't know if you noticed, but in Congress, in the House of Representatives, they are looking to introduce a procedure of removing a president due to the 25th Amendment, because we have steps in place, but it's never been done. So it's like there's no proven way of doing it. So Nancy Pelosi introduced talk the other day about formulating a committee in the House of Representatives and getting things in place so we can, remove a president by the 25th Amendment standards. And everyone immediately thought, well, obviously she's doing this because of Trump. What if Trump gets elected? Or maybe they can try to get something in place and then do something before, the election, which obviously wouldn't happen because we're literally like 20 days away. Or whatever it is, 19, 20, I don't know, whatever it is. So needless to say, she's not talking about Trump. This whole thing is in place because they're trying to get set up for Biden, get him in office, get him elected, and then get him removed so they can put who? Kamala Harris as president, so they can then start moving their leftist agenda in place. And if you don't think that's true, mark my words, if Biden gets elected, he will be removed as soon as they humanly possibly can. It won't be done day one. It won't be done in 30 days or even 60 days, but I can see realistically within 6 months, either him stepping down because of his health issue, whatever that might be, whatever they decide to conjure up as a health issue or whatever. Biden just wants to be president, wants to be elected, wants to raise his hand in victory and take the oath, and give his little speech and make a few appearances and go down the history books. That's all he wants. And that's fine. I understand it. I get it. I do. But yeah, so yeah, that's very interesting. So that most people don't realize that's why Nancy Pelosi is really pushing forward. I mean, and twofold. Like, again, if somehow Trump wins, they're looking for another way in place so they can remove Trump from office as fast as humanly possible. My hair is all messed up today. I don't get it. My hair is like, look at that. Boom. I need to get a haircut, right? I need a haircut. But any hoozles. So that is what's going on with that. Now, the reason why I put this headline in there wasn't actually because of what's going on in Congress, what's not going on with Nancy Pelosi or the House of Representatives or this 25th Amendment issue. No. What we're talking about are the Senate. And the reason being, and we'll get more, we'll talk about it now. So as you know, right now, currently, and I didn't watch it today, so I don't know what the developments of were today, but for this whole week, they've been dealing with the Senate Committee on Judiciary, having their interviews with Amy Coney Barrett, who is also known as ACB. What's going to go with ACB going forward? She was put up for nomination for the Supreme Court, and very good chance she's going to get approved. And the Democrats are doing everything they can to delay it, to stop it, to buy time, to make her look bad. They're changing definitions of words, of meaning, and kudos to them for trying. I mean, it's not like I'm mad. It's like what's the old saying I always say? Don't hate the player, hate the game. Right? These are politicians. They're playing a game, and they're trying to win, just like basketball players playing in a game, or football players, or pick a sport, put it on there. They're trying to win. They're doing everything they can to win. So don't be mad at them for that. What I'm talking about are things like, so right now the committee is controlled by the Senate because the Senate's controlled by Republicans, say Democrat, but Republicans. So because of that, but they can still try to find little nuances to push things back. So they're trying. Well, in theory, their plan was to have everything done by tomorrow, so then they could put it up a vote in committee to send it to the Senate, so they could vote on it there. But the Democrats have already talked about how they're going to delay it to the full stature that they can for 1 week. So it'll be 1 week before they can send it to the Senate. And not only that, all of a sudden, miraculously today, they had audio-visual issues. And because not every person can be there in person, that delayed it for another day. You know what I mean? They're going to do everything they can to push it back for another day. And hopefully another day will stretch into another week. And another week will stretch into another whatever. And it's silly, but, kudos to them for trying, I suppose. At least they give the old college try, if you will. But yeah, people are losing their mind. And then another perfect example, people losing their mind. And I can never remember her name. And unfortunately, I did not pull a tab up. I should have. But we're talking about the senator, I can't think of her name, from Hawaii, who blatantly starts saying the most bizarre shit I've ever heard in my life. Like today, she was attacking ACB because she used a reference in a conversation she had as part of these hearings, talking about when he talked about sexuality as having a sexual preference. And she said that's absolutely offensive. It's a wrong word. It's a wrong phrase. It's wrong terminology. It's terrible. And yet there are major players on the Democratic side, including RGB, who in the last couple of years have used that term openly, constantly. Even people who use it as early, as recently as a couple of months ago. But yet she's trying to make this an entire new thing and say, well, it's offensive to members of the LGBT community, which I can understand why someone could make that reference, but it's not true. It's not accurate. Preference is not the same as choice. And to make things more tangible, let's say if someone had a preference when it comes to, say, chicken or pork, that's not their choice. That's their preference. That's what they like. So if you say, well, someone has a sexual preference of liking people of the opposite sex, that's not saying that you don't have a choice. Of course you have a choice, but it's not about the choice. It's just about your preference. That's what you like. If you're a man who likes a man, that's what your preference is. It's not saying it's a bad thing. To say someone has a sexual preference is just saying that's what you like. So the whole conversation is ridiculous, but people are acting like it isn't, and just silly, just really silly. But we're almost at 24 minutes, so I'm going to get to our last story before we get to our happy ending. And that would be, I want to say kudos, congratulations, good job to both Wolf Blitzer and Jake Tapper of CNN. Now, you might be curious as to why I would say that, because I'm not typically a big fan of any news network, let alone CNN. Well, the reason why I want to say congratulations to them and good job is, well, I'll start with Jake Tapper first. I don't know if it was the weekend or Monday, but Jake Tapper, or maybe it was Monday, Tuesday. I can't even know. I'm losing my days here. I don't even know what day it was, but it was just a few days ago, Jake Tapper decided he was going to ask a question to someone who belonged to the Biden campaign. And when they gave a BS answer, he pushed back a little bit. They were attacking the ACB nomination for Supreme Court, that it was unconstitutional. And Biden himself had said it numerous times. And Jake Tapper basically flat out said that's not true. It's not unconstitutional. You can say that, you don't like it. It's not a good idea. You don't think it's good for the country. There's a million things you could say. But to say it's unconstitutional is absolutely wrong. Well, she just wouldn't admit to it. He kept calling her on it, and she, needless to say, she never gave in, right? But he was absolutely 100% correct. And a lot of people got mad at Jake Tapper. Well, fast forward a little bit, and to just 2 days ago, Wolf Blitzer was interviewing Nancy Pelosi, and they were talking in detail about the most recent efforts by the Republicans in the White House to try to get something passed as far as a stimulus and relief package for the citizens of the U.S. because so many people are hurting. And Wolf Blitzer, you can say what you want about the guy. He seems to really care about people. Again, I'm not saying he's a good man. I'm not saying he's a bad man, but I can only go off of what I see of him as a professional persona. And I've always seen him to be pretty consistent on when it comes to people and caring about people. So I have no grips with what he has to say. Nancy Pelosi, she seems pretty fake. There's lots of negative things I could say about her, but I won't. But she became very defensive because he started asking her questions like, well, the plan that the Republicans put forth and the White House put forth towards you meets majority of the things that you asked for. In fact, it's 1.8 trillion, which is way higher than they originally wanted to go. Why don't you meet them halfway and take that deal and then continue to work on other things? And she just lost it. She just went to town on him, telling him horrible things, calling him terrible names, making accusations that weren't even close to true. And I felt bad for the guy personally. But yeah, he really stood his ground and said, well, basically talk about, there are people who are being evicted, there are people who can't eat, people who can't pay their rent, people who are going to be homeless. And all you have to do is agree to something, give them a check and give them some money and buy him some time. And then you can keep negotiating. And she just kept yelling at him, telling him that he was supporting and promoting and defending the GOP. Wolf Blitzer? No, he wasn't doing any of those things. He was trying to be a stand-up guy for the average American Joe. And for that, he earns my gratitude for today. Him and Jake Tapper both. Again, they're not wonderful people necessarily, but I have nothing to argue with anything either one of them said most recently. So kudos to both of you. Good job. And hopefully you keep being willing to, and I've seen a lot of things from Jake Tapper lately, actually. Not Wolf Blitzer so much, but Jake Tapper standing up and not being afraid to ask a question or push back a little bit. So I'm proud of you guys. That's amazing. We need more of that. And I don't care what channel you're on or who you support or what's going on. We need more of that mentality when it comes to our media and our anchors and our journalists. So good job. But that being said, we're already time for, of course, our edition of Happy Endings. Now, again, for those of you who may not be here for a while or have not been here for a little while, we were doing happy ending videos every single time. And those are fun and those are great. But every time I do it, I keep getting all these warnings and potential strikes against the account because they're copyrighted material. And frankly, I don't want to deal with that. So instead, we're going to be doing something else. We're going to be talking about some articles. Happy articles. Articles about positive, happy things. And today, we are going to be talking about bee populations and how they are increasing in many states, with Maine seeing a 70% rise in 2 years. Now, I know what you're thinking. How are bee populations increasing a good thing? Well, bees are actually very important to our general environment, right? We need them for pollination. We need them for spreading and pollinating plants. And these are wonderful things, right? It's not often you hear good news about the health and prosperity of the bee colonies in the United States or globally for that matter, but recent data collections released by the U.S. Department of Agriculture show that some states are experiencing growths in colony numbers of 70% or more. Not only was there a 14% increase in the number of honeybees colonies from the period of January 2019 to January 2020, but the states experiencing the broadest increase in colony growth, Michigan, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Maine, added tens of thousands of colonies. And again, this is good news for not only me, but for you. So on that happy note, guys, we are going to leave you here for today. But don't forget, tomorrow will be Friday. It'll be the last day of the week for the Daily Dirty 30. Hopefully, my guest will arrive for the Libertarian Hour on Friday, but we'll talk more about that tomorrow. You guys have a good rest of your night. Have a wonderful day tomorrow. And we will see you tomorrow, same time, same place, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, right here on The Kevin Lee Show. We will see you then, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.